Hello everyone, this is Jackie's Movie. In this issue, let's watch an American adventure film, 6 Days 7 Nights. Monroe was a strong woman in the workplace. Her boyfriend, Frank, was romantic and rich. Frank knew that Monroe hadn't rested for a long time. He helped Monroe to apply for her boss for a 2-week vacation to prepare for a 6-day and 7-night trip to the tropical island. But when the two came to the airport, they found the charter company's flight was cancelled. So they temporarily assigned a small private cargo plane to serve them. The pilot, Quinn, and his plane look unreliable. Monroe worried about taking such a broken plane. She wanted Frank to find another company to charter. But Quinn on the side said that there was currently no direct plane to the island. And it took 3 days to get to the port by boat. As a last resort, the two could only sit on that plane. Sitting with them was a female assistant, Angelica, with a hot body. Soon after, the four arrived on the island. At night, Frank reminded Monroe today was the anniversary of their first meeting. On this important day, the romantic Frank proposed to Monroe. The next day, the young couple on the beach were enjoying a rare holiday. Suddenly, Monroe's boss called and told that the urgent work at work made the boss anxious. The only person she could rely on now was Monroe. Other personnel had rushed to the city near Monroe to stand by. The boss urgently needed Monroe to spare a day to complete this important work. Under the strong request of her boss, Monroe took over the task to get to the worksite as soon as possible. Monroe immediately found Quinn and spent a lot of money to cover his plane. Frank criticized Monroe's behavior, but he couldn't stop this strong woman who regarded her work as life. Angelica had a performance tonight. Frank was so angry that he didn't want to go with Monroe. So only Quinn and Monroe were on the plane. Unexpectedly, there was a thunderstorm on the way. Quinn didn't dare to take risks, so he turned around and turned back. On the way, lightning hit the plane, causing radio damage. For safety, Quinn could only make an emergency landing nearby. Finally, Quinn found a small island. But when he landed, he accidentally hit a rock and damaged the aircraft's landing gear. Now, these two were completely trapped on the desert island. The phone had no signal and the radio was broken. The plane was also hit hard. Fortunately, they also have a flare gun and a signal flare. This time, Frank and Angelica also received news of their partner missing. They quickly hired a search and rescue helicopter to look around. On a desert island, the two found a source of water in the forest. Suddenly, a pig that rushed out scared Monroe into the water. A water snake got in the crotch. Fortunately, at the critical moment, Quinn helped her. Later, Quinn beat a peacock to solve the food problem. Tonight, the two were eating barbecue and drinking coconut juice. They spent the first day on the deserted island in peace. The next morning, Monroe saw a plane passing by in the sky. However, Quinn slept very deeply holding the bottle. Monroe couldn't wake up Quinn. He pulled out the flare gun around his waist and launched a distress signal. Unexpectedly, Quinn turned around and hooked Monroe's feet, causing the signal to shoot off the tree next to it. The last hope was completely shattered. Quinn, who was awakened, suddenly became angry. But Monroe pointed to the plane and said it was all Quinn's fault. Looking at the plane in the sky, Quinn was furious. Because the jetliner was 600 kilometers per hour high in the sky, maybe it couldn't even see a nuclear explosion, let alone a small flare. Without flare guns, they could only climb to the top of the mountain before dark to see if they could find other ways. On the way, they fell into a crack and almost became the food of the scorpion. Quinn concluded that they were blown 40 degrees southwest. So there should be a radio navigation signal tower on this island. As long as they climbed up to the top and turned off the signal tower, there would definitely be some staff coming here to repair. At dusk, they finally climbed to the top of the mountain, but they saw nothing. Quinn took out the map and found out that he had judged the wrong location. Unable to do anything, the two of them saw a ship docked in the distance through the telescope. They ran out excitedly back to the plane and rode the life raft to the ship without stopping. But they didn't arrive until the sun rose. On the way, the boring Monroe suddenly gossiped about Quinn's emotional state. Quinn said he and Angelica were both casual people, just playing around. At first, his wife, who had lived with Quinn for 12 years, cheated on his friend, and that friend was also Quinn's business partner. After the divorce, Quinn sold half of the shares and came to the island alone and bought a plane and lived a simple and happy life. At this time, Monroe saw another ship docked. Quinn took the telescope and saw a pirate ship. He was so scared that he turned around and ran, but he was caught. The pirates immediately released their motorboats to chase and kill them. The two hurriedly jumped into the sea and swam desperately to the shore, but Monroe was exhausted just after climbing the hillside. As a last resort, Quinn had to let Monroe hide first. He distracted the pirates and waited for an opportunity to attack. 2 pirates were tripped to the ground. Quinn took advantage of the situation and quickly hit the opponent. Unexpectedly, another pirate came to support and held Monroe. Just when the pirates were about to shoot Quinn, Monroe had an idea and lied that they had gold. She fooled the pirate and said she was a jewelry designer. There was jewelry made of gold and gems on the plane they fell. When the pirate heard that he could make a fortune, he immediately escorted the two to find gold. When passing by the slope, Quinn decisively held Monroe and rolled down. They ran frantically all the way but ran to a dead end on the edge of the cliff. Behind were the pirates with guns, and the front was a vast ocean. There was still a hope of life when jumping into the sea, and they would definitely die if they fell into the hands of the pirates. Quinn immediately pulled Monroe and jumped off. On the beach, the two people who survived the catastrophe couldn't help kissing together. But Monroe's diamond engagement ring seemed to remind them not to cross the line. The two had no choice but to give up and continue to flee. At this moment, the two people who have experienced life and death together were in mutual affection. Later, they chose to go deep into the old forest. In the tree, they saw a Sea Air amphibious plane that crashed during World War II. This evening, Frank and Angelica drank a lot of alcohol. Angelica was very active and took off her clothes and wanted to spend the night with Frank. To comfort their common bad mood, Frank was determined not to betray Monroe. Though he said no, his body was very honest. Here, the men and women on the isolated island were getting warmer. But in the end, they did not cross the line, choosing to hug each other to sleep. But because he couldn't sleep, Quinn looked up at the plane on the tree. Suddenly he had a new idea. He saw off the taxiing gear of the crashed plane and transported it back to the sea, then used the wooden shelf to pull the plane upright. Then he tied the taxiing gear to the landing gear. A seaplane was successfully transformed in this way. Unfortunately, the pirates found them before they took off. This time, the pirates directly launched a long-range bombardment. Time was running fast, and the two couldn't take care of the experiment and quickly drove to the surface to accelerate. Moving target made it difficult for pirates to shoot. No shells hit the target. At this time, the plane was quickly rushing towards the pirates' boat. Either they were able to take off successfully, or be burned to pieces. After the two people worked together, the plane flew smoothly at the last minute. Several pirates just aimed at the target and unknowingly competed to put the muzzle upright. The plane didn't hit, but instead blasted the pirate's ship into pieces. On the high-altitude plane, Quinn, who was seriously injured, was very weak. He was afraid he couldn't hold on. So he taught Monroe to fly a plane while she was awake. On the holiday island, Frank and Angelica failed to find their partner. They thought their partners had been killed and they were holding a burial for the two. Just after the funeral, Frank knelt before the priest. He regretted that he had committed a crime and sorry for his dead fiancée. At this time, Monroe was driving the plane close to the island, and Quinn was unconscious. Monroe recalled Quinn's teaching while operating the plane to land. Finally, she stopped at the beach without any danger. Frank climbed onto the plane anxiously to rescue his fiancée. But Monroe stared at Quinn reluctantly. After returning to the hotel, Frank, with a guilty conscience, tried to solve his stupid things. But Monroe's mind was all about Quinn. She didn't even hear a word. This accident made Monroe fall in love with Quinn, and it made Quinn fall in love with Monroe. But Quinn said he didn't want to change his current state. They were people from different worlds. Monroe had her complicated urban life. Quinn had his simple pastoral life. No one could abandon the status quo and enter the other's world. They were different and could not seek each other. The two were only separated. In the airport, Frank and Monroe were worried. Monroe suddenly told Frank if they were overshadowed by this, they should not get married. Frank apologized as soon as he grasped Monroe's hands and confessed his one-night stand with Angelica. Seeing Monroe's doubts, Frank knew that he had revealed his secret. He asked Monroe what the shadow was. So Monroe confessed the story between her and Quinn. Frank felt very sad. It was supposed to be a romantic trip but ended up losing his unmarried fiancée. When boarding the plane, Monroe hesitated for a moment but still got on the plane. At the same time, Quinn rushed to the airport, but the plane to New York has already started to take off. When he was in despair, Monroe walked down from the boarding platform. Quinn said he felt his life was too simple. Monroe said she felt her life was too complicated. We didn't know who we would meet and abandon our status quo to live with each other. In the end, the two kissed and hugged each other affectionately. Have you seen that? Years of calm emotions are not as good as a few days of life and death adventures. Okay, this is the end of this issue. Friends who like it, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, see you next time.